Hey guys, back with Gold Paladin deck update. So start deck came out for Gold Paladin and we got a couple updates that we can incorporate to current Gold Paladin decks. So I thought I'd show you guys what I did to my deck, incorporating new cards from the start deck. So starter, it's the new starter from the start deck, which is Knight of Early Dawn Coel. The skill is Generation Break 1. When you're in Unite, you get to move it to the soul during your main phase, and then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, search for one card from among that 3, call it to rear, and it gets plus 2k. So it's basically, it's superior call stuff for free, kind of like Guido for Bluish Flames, and the only requirement is Unite. So you just need to call 2 things, which is really easy to do, and then you can activate the skill during your main phase. So really great starter. On to the grade 3s, running 4 copies of Sunrise Ray Knight Gurguit, using the GBT03 version, Triple R. The stride skill is Counterblast 1. When you stride, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, call something from among it gets plus 2k. So really simple, starts out superior calls. The Generation Break skill, GB2, is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. At the beginning of the battle that Gurguit is being attacked in the Vanguard circle, you can look at the top 4 cards and pick one and place it in the guard circle. So you can superior guard to protect Gurguit. So we're gonna probably get a lot of new stuff in GBT07, which incorporates more guarding, but for this deck, it incorporates more of superior calling, and Gurgit's GB2 is more for emergencies. Next up on the grade 3s, we have new update is 4 copies of Salvation Lion Grand Ezel Scissors. So in my previous build, I didn't have Ezel Scissors in here, most likely because I didn't have the money for it. But the other reason is because it was trying to focus more on the hitting and skills of Don Valo. But for this deck, I'm going to be focused on Ezel, especially since we got Chaos Breaker and Chaos Universe locking everything. And Gold Paladin needs that. So Grand Ezel skill, friendly reminder, is Limit Break, Counterblast 2, Soul Blast 2, unlock all your cards. So all your rear guard is unlocked, and then you do the skill. And as soon as you do the skill, if you have 5 rear guards, Grand Ezel Scissors gets plus 10,000 power and an extra critical. And then at the end of the turn, you soul charge and unflip one. So kind of nice. You get to replenish some resources. The other skill is he gets plus 1,000 for each Gold Paladin rear guard, just like Blonde Ezel. And then Lord skill can't do anything unless there's a Gold Paladin, but the whole deck's Gold Paladin, so no need to worry about that. So now moving on to the grade 2s. 4 copies of the MVP, Holy Mage Pwyll. So Pwyll's skill is Generation Break 1. When it's boosted, Counterblast 1. When it attacks a Vanguard, look at the top 3 of your deck, call something to rear guard. That's it. So really needed because this deck superior call wants to superior call a lot. So this card is great. Gotta run a playset of it. So new card added from the start deck. I'm running 4 copies of this guy. This is Knight of New Sun Catillus. So Catillus is basically just your 12k attacker. So its skill is continuous. When it's in Unite, it gets plus 3,000 when you meet the requirements. So I'm running this instead of other options like Vivian and Loppier because Vivian is counterblast and this deck is very counterblast heavy. Loppier's shooter makes you discard a card, and I don't really want to do that. A lot of times maybe I might not have that many cards in my hand. I like this because if I'm in the middle of my battle phase and a superior call something with Pwyll, if I'm in Unite, it hits for a 12k attack and it can be a nice 12 type beat stick. Defensively, it still keeps its 12,000. So if you put 2 things in the guard circle, on the rear guard circle, it's still a 12k rear guard. It's pretty nice. So it's better than the other 12k attacker, which I had before in my previous build. Also new, which I'm adding to this build, instead of Saphir, I put in 3 copies of Fhamgal. Fhamgal is great in this deck because it's free. And since I'm going to be superior calling a lot thanks to Coel, Gurguit, and other superior calling abilities, finding Fhamgal is a lot easier now, and it can be free sometimes. Fhamgal's skill is basically Loppier's shooter, but without the discard. Its skill is when it's placed on the rear guard circle from your deck, you look at the top 3 cards and call another thing. So to call this from deck, look at the top 3, call another thing from the deck. And as soon as you do that, you basically meet Unite requirements because 2 things were placed onto the field. So Fhamgal is great for this deck. 8k grade 2s are kind of iffy, but with Fhamgal, it's okay. For grade 1s, 4 copies of the Stride Fodder, using the rare foiled version of the Stride fodder. So it's Stride, you know, look for Gurguit, yeah, like all the other Stride fodders do for their main grade 3s. Also, this didn't come in the start deck, but I've incorporated it in my deck now, which is Afterglow, Liberator, Belinus. I never use this card that often, but its skill is when it's placed onto the rearguard circle from the deck, you choose 2 other cards and get them plus 2k. The only thing about this card I don't really like is the fact you can get plus 2k to other units instead of itself, which would be cool because you can make it a 9k beater, but mainly it's just if it's called from the deck and I just need a booster, it can kind of fix some columns and make some things bigger. So it's just a little tech. So 3 copies of that instead of my 8k Camarcuses, which I did before. And of course, 2 copies of Coogal, which is Dindrain, but without the Soul Blast. So it's when it's called from deck, Generation Break 1, draw a card. So it's a free plus. So if you see it in the top 4, top 3, you call it, you get a free draw afterwards. So it's really nice. And last, for my other non-perfect guard, grade 1, is Knife Throwing Knight Maleagant. So it's basically, since this deck counterblasts a lot. So Maleagant is Soul Blast 2, Unflip 2. This deck does need your soul, and it contradicts with Gurgit's Soul Blast and Counterblast for the defense. But oftentimes I don't find myself using Gurgit's Superior Call skill more than once. And also there's other cards that can Soul Charge and stuff. So only run 1. It's for emergencies if I want to unflip stuff and I really need it. So, you know, it's a tech. And lastly, 4 perfect cards. I'm using Holy Mage Breyderi, which is the unflipping PG. The reason I'm using this over regular PGs like Halo Shield Mark is because this deck, again, very counterblast heavy. And that oftentimes that I find myself doing the Superior Guard with Gurgit's skill, very rare. So I'd rather get my unflips than bank on a chance that I get a perfect Superior perfect guard. It's really fun when you do it. So if you really want to try that out, do 3 of these and 1 regular perfect guard. So that way you still have the chance of getting Gurgit's Superior Call with a perfect guard, and it's really funny. So, but if you want to keep it consistent with your unflips, keep 4 copies. And now moving on to triggers. We're doing 8 crits. I'm doing 4 copies of Air Raid Lion, critical trigger, and the new reprint for Flame of Victory, which looks awesome. Flame of Victory is the Margaret clone. Move it to Soul during main phase, give something plus 3,000. So again, filling up Soul for Gurguit, which is nice. Then we're running 4 stand triggers. So again, keeping Gigantic Ringer, which is an amazing card, especially when you can combo it off with Coel. That's the best part that you can do with this card. Because with Coel's skill, Coel is just Unite, move to Soul, call something from the deck. So if you just call something, then call Gigantic Ringer, you move Coel to Soul, because now you have 2 things called, call something from the deck, and then you can activate Gigantic Ringer's skill. And then Gigantic Ringer's skill, before I forget, is Generation Break 1. When it's on the rearguard circle, when another unit is placed from the deck onto the rearguard circle, you can move this back into your deck, give the unit plus 5,000 power until the end of turn, then you shuffle your deck, and then after you shuffle, you draw. So it lets you draw, and if you Superior Call it and you get it skill off later, it's basically a free plus from your deck. And it's a stand trigger. And this deck does a lot of attacks during the main phase while you're Superior Calling, so stand triggers do help a lot. This stand trigger is great. You see a lot of people running it in Bluish Flame decks too, so it tells you something. And lastly, we have our new updated heal trigger. Curable Angel. I like the Angel heal trigger. I don't care, Atlas, if you like Napgo Liberator better. I like Curable Angel. So now, going into our G units. So first, 1 copy of Fast Chase Golden Knight Cambell. So Cambell is your basic on hit, does something. So it's when it's in the Vanguard circle and it hits your opponent's Vanguard, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, pick 1, call it, and it gets plus 2k. So early game pressure, filling up your field, really nice. I'm running it at 1 copy for now. Because the other thing that I'm putting in here is new card, which is Golden Dragon, Ray Breath Dragon. Ray Breath, honestly, it's for fun. I rarely use it, and if I'm using it, it's mostly if I really don't want to use my counterblast and I just want to call stuff from hand to use its ability, which is Unite. So it's a Vanguard with Unite. Its Unite ability is my front row rear guards get plus 2,000 and he gets plus 5,000. So it's a basic trial deck card, but it's really nice if you want to fix numbers. Like if Fhamgal is 08k and it has a 7k booster and it hits for 15, this can make it hit for 17. If you superior call something and you want that plus 2, it helps out. So running at 1, if you really don't like Raybeth, there's another option you can put in, which is Golden Dragon Scourge Point Dragon. So this card is the MVP, the realist G-Unit MVP of this deck. This thing is destructive. So if you don't want to run an extra copy of Raybeth, run an extra copy of this, because this thing is great. Its skill is whenever a unit is placed onto the rearguard circle from the deck, that unit and this unit get plus 5,000. So every time you call something, Scourge Point gets another plus 5,000. So if you call 3 times, that's plus 15,000 to Scourge Point himself. And every time you call, plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. So if you call Fhamgal, Fhamgal is 5. The thing that Fhamgal calls, that gets plus 5. So, and then you combo off with the stand trigger, then that gets another plus 5k. It's really powerful. So this deck is all about superior calling and hitting big numbers, and Scourge Point is pretty much going to be your finisher for this deck. Next, we're running 2 copies of Spearcross Dragon, which is counterblast 2, flip a copy of itself. For each face-up card in your G zone, you look at the top 5, and from that 5, you call based on the number that's in your face-up G zone. So if you have 2 cards in your G zone, you flip them face up. Now there's 3. You look at the top 5, and you can call 3 of those 5. So it's basically panic button, my field's gone, I need a field. There's your field. So running Spearcross at 2 because it's counterblast city. It's counterblast 2. Can't really do that more than once, so I prefer not to. So it's really good at 2. And lastly, since I included Ezel Scissors in my deck, I'm including Absolute Lion King Mithril Ezel. Mithril Ezel, of course, is basically for anti-Link Joker, but the other thing is when I was running Blizza in my old deck, the main reason I ran Blizza was first turn, need to flip something over for a Gurguit skill. But if you read Mithril Ezel's skill, he doesn't require an Ezel Heart for you to do the flipping. So you could, if you really just need GB2 right away, you could stride Ezel and then do the skill, counterblast 1, flip it in the G zone, nothing happens, but now at the end of turn you have 2 cards in your face-up G zone if you really need Gurgit's skill to protect yourself. So, but by then you're pretty much screwed anyways, so, but I mean, it's basically I took out Blizza for this because they were doing the exact same thing. So that's pretty much it. That's my update. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.